Good morning and welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. As you can see, Haggerty 10, Sean Martin TCW on the Twitter handles. I'm joined by Sean Martin. We both had the fortune and privilege and honour to be working at the Cup final yesterday, Sean. It ended Hibernian 1, Celtic 2. That's why we're smiling and grinning like Cheshire Cats. It's a happy Monday, Sean.
It is a happy Monday. We'll step on. We'll say there was shock inclusions, shock exclusions, world class goals, world class atmosphere, and it all combined for Ange Postecoglou to get the first trophy of his reign, and who else but Kyogo to get the decisive goals.
I wrote my colour piece, Sean. Do you remember the first time? I think yesterday was one of those days that cup finals come and go. There was something special about yesterday, wasn't there? And it'll linger long in the memory. And I think if anybody inside that ground deserved that yesterday, it was Ange Postecoglou.
I think so. And he referenced that after the game. He mentioned that a club so used to success, sometimes there are finals that, for better or worse, sometimes you forget a lot about them. You don't necessarily, it's not one of the ones that comes to mind immediately when you talk about cup finals. And he basically says his aim whenever he's in a final is to make it one that you remember. He done that in Japan, he done it in Australia, and I think he's done it in Scotland already.
Now, you spoke about it there, surprise inclusions, surprise exclusions. The biggest surprise, and well, it wasn't really a surprise because we've been talking about it all week. Nobody would have predicted that starting 11, Sean. He just ripped it. He did it his way. He always does it his way. And he said, he had a great quote after it when we were sitting in the auditorium, and he said, there was no way Kyogo wasn't going to play in that game. He would have snuck on the bus. He would have snuck onto the field at some point. And lo and behold, he scores the 2 goals that win the cup with finishes that I can pay him the highest compliment and say they were Henrik Larsson-esque. That's what I'm going to say.
No, I mean, it's the comparisons there. It was certainly the second one as well was not far away from the kind of thing that you see on the Larsson's Greatest Goals compilation, was it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was, I'm sure we'll come to that goal, but that was something made from the entirety of the months preceding that final to me, that goal, because he's made those runs every game.
Yeah.
And although they've started trying to find them, Ralston in particular was trying to find them the last time I can remember. It's either been that he's maybe went too fast or the linesman's adjusted him offside even if he wasn't. And sometimes the ball's just not been good. Yesterday it all came together. Of course it was Tom Rogic, because I think that's the person you'd have bet on to be the one to find him eventually. Everything came together. Not only did the linesman not guess that it was offside, but he had the exact right guy to play the ball through to him as well. And then the finish, as we say, there is no higher compliment than saying it wouldn't have looked out of place on a Larsson DVD.
He actually did 2 right guys to play the ball through to him, because the response to going a goal down was incredible. You know, at 1-0 Hibs, you think Celtic are in a game, and I was too busy. The two of us were too busy typing the fact that Hibs had taken the lead, looked up, saw Callum McGregor's pass, and Kyogo did the rest. It's an instant response, Sean. No time to feel sorry for themselves. Just kept going. They don't stop. As the manager said, we don't stop.
Both goals were that. Both goals were that personified. The first goal in double quick time. There wasn't even time for them to start getting cagey. It was literally from the kick-off. The Hibs fans hadn't even finished celebrating yet. And the second one is that again, like the quick throw-ins, which like you mentioned the Aberdeen game. We always talk about that Aberdeen game as the start of this big run. The throw into David Turnbull that day, and the quick ball across to Kyogo again with the one switched on. Those kind of goals, they've not been every week, but they've been there. And I'm not really that surprised that both goals were in that manner, the we don't stop manner, the let them take a wee breather as long as we're switched on, that kind of mantra. That's both goals yesterday again.
It's the 2 runs, Sean, and the finishes but that make it. Mm-hmm. Ange touched on it as well. He said to produce those 2 goals, the quality of the finishes, the runs and the passes to find them, but on that stage, it's that's when it matters. That's when good players do their thing, or great players, whatever you want to call them. But Kyogo's certainly, I mean, he's now a hero, isn't he? And he saw how much it meant to him. There was that brilliant picture of him leaping in mid-air after equaliser. That's going to become another iconic picture, isn't it?
I think so, and also the one of him and Ange after the game, with the man that brought him there, the man that backed him to come to Europe and make the impact, and obviously Kyogo's taking that chance and run with it. So, and I mean, Ange talked about it after the game. You mentioned what he said about him. He would have snuck onto a bus and snuck onto the park in some way. But like after that, he said that who would have thought necessarily, apart from Ange himself, obviously, that he would have been able to take him from halfway across the world and he would have been an instant success. He says, realistically, who could have been? You can't necessarily expect that. But Ange thought that would be the case. It has been the case, and he's a talisman already. Already was a talisman for this new era because of the way that he sets the tone up front and he almost embodies the way that the attack want to play. But I think that just solidifies it. 2 goals in a cup final. You cannot beat that. That's a contribution that will live long in memory. The goals, the quality of the finishes we've already spoke about. That just adds a wee cherry on top of it there.
That's from a man that wasn't fit, Sean. Wonder what he'd do if he was fit.
Well, as Ange said, he felt a responsibility. Kyogo, I mean, he said Kyogo felt a responsibility. As the talisman, he knows himself that he's viewed as such already, and he embraces it. But he embraces it to the extent that he was, as Ange says, never not going to play. But what a way to embrace it! What a way to help out! That's what he said. He just wanted to help the team. What a way to help!
Yeah. Ted comes in. Morning, Ted. Kyogo's an absolute legend. Certainly heading that way, isn't he? Frank Brennan. Morning, Frank. How you doing? Regular contributor. 2 moments of absolute genius from Kyogo. As I'm very fond of saying, where on earth would we be without him this season? And a wee reminder too that he wasn't nearly fully fit yesterday. Indeed. A couple other comments. Edward Wyabos, as I say, we don't stop. Keep chasing Rangers because they may implode if their key players leave in January. Yep. And Tim Anon comes in, ecstatic, going to be, I think he means hero here. Kyogo can be a new Henrik Larsson.
No, I think he means heretic, I think.
Yes, indeed. But yeah, I mean, everybody, I think the Celtic fans in unison loved yesterday. They just felt there's something special brewing. John Coyle comes in, we really deserved that yesterday. Kyogo's a little magician. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Martin Kelly, Kyogo, I think in a kind of Brazilian commentator style. I think just that happiness that every Celtic supporter's woken up with today, Sean, they're back on the trophy winning trail again because last season was such a bitter disappointment. And I think the one thing they just feel now is pride. They feel pride in their team, they feel pride in themselves, but above all else, they feel pride in their manager. Who has, as you say, flown halfway across the world. That's why he flew halfway across the world for days like yesterday, and hopefully more of them to come. They're Tim and on agreeing with me. Ange's restored their pride. Yeah, indeed, I think he has, and I think everybody is proud of the manager because he's fond of referencing himself that he came in and nobody knew about him, and nobody did know about him, and there was kind of blind faith and blind optimism. Oh, he'll do well. Others were a bit more sceptical, but he's laid that to rest, hasn't he, in the short time he's been here? 6 months, and he's gelled a team that was badly in need of... it was dysfunctional, Sean. It was in disrepair.
And
it
was still as such by the time the first qualifiers rolled around. Which would be the case most of the time, but he had that to deal with. He had numerous injury crises to deal with, including one getting into this final. Because you've got to remember, Forrest and Jota still weren't there, although Kyogo came back. You could argue there was still, those two were missing. I'll still mention it, the squad depth issue's still there. It's still there for January. But he said himself yesterday after the game that rising to such obstacles is what gets him going, is the phrase that he used. He loves it. And you said that there, he acknowledged that not a lot of people would have backed him from over here. Obviously, Australia and Japan, they were very much saying, no, you've got a good one here, that give him the time that he needs. And but over here, he did acknowledge that he was a bit of an unknown quantity and that it needed a leap of faith. And he got it from the fans. He said that more than once, that he's got it more than what he thinks he deserves so far. And this is a kind of tangible thing to give back, if you want to put it that way. He says he never doubted himself anyway, and you can tell just by the way that he talks that he doesn't doubt himself. He knows what he's doing. He trusts in what he's doing. He always has. We've said that all season. But it's nice, and it's nice for him as well to get a tangible bit of success right away rather than having to wait.
I loved yesterday, Sean, when he was asked, was he going to have wine and beer to celebrate? And all he said was, I'll have a scotch. I'll celebrate with my beautiful wife and my sons or my family, said, didn't he?
Sons, his boys, aye.
His boys. And then he said, because I want to remember it. I want to have it in my memory. I want to have a snapshot in my head and store it away. And then we move on to the next one. He's already thinking about what else he wants to achieve with the club. It's phenomenal. It's an incredible way to live your life.
Well, it's the right attitude to have, isn't it? Because there's still, I mean, it's as much as I was bigging up the League Cup over a derby game and all that the other day, much to you and Alison's shock, it is still just the first trophy. You don't want it to be the only trophy, that kind of way. And I think that is the right attitude to have. But I mean, what stuck out to me about the part that you mentioned there was the reason he wants to have the snapshot in his head is so that if he meets any of these players in 20 years, he can discuss it in detail 20 years from now, which I thought was great. But the other thing was he basically said that it's who you celebrate these moments of success with that matters as much as the actual success themselves, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yeah, it was indeed.
That obviously means you've got to remember me for the next 20 years now then.
Of course, Sean, it was a joy to meet you for the first time yesterday, actually, in person. It was that was a highlight of my day. I'll get that out of the road now. It certainly was. Cannon and Ball or something, a double act at Morecambe and Wise. I don't know what one is which, but Hinge and Bracket were at the final. It was great. No, it was good, actually. It was good to be there and share it with yourself. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to talk about something else. And there was kind of conflicting opinions of how he played yesterday, but Callum McGregor's a Celtic trophy-winning captain now, and yourself and myself thought he was up there as a man of the match contender until Kyogo did his thing. But I just fast running out of superlative to describe Callum McGregor. I think he's a phenomenally gifted footballer, and he's just so efficient at what he does that the bar is set so high that anything that falls below that, in somebody's opinion, people comment. But I just thought he was terrific yesterday.
I think what you've just said there is exactly it. One of my pals actually used pretty much that exact expression, that it's just because his bar's so high, if he gets a 7 out of 10 rather than an 8, then you go, McGregor wasn't really on it today, was he? But that's part of the course. He'd say that himself, that you set this as high standards as you possibly can, and it's almost a compliment if you have a very good game, but it's not excellent. But I thought he was excellent yesterday. I thought he had a really good game. I thought he was instrumental. I think John Coyle in the comments here has summed it up. He's a beating heart of that team. I don't think anybody can disagree with that. I think that sums it up. And also Andrew Galea here saying his motor's unbelievable. He seems to be everywhere. He fills in wherever he's needed. I've said that in a few of the match ratings this season. He's nominally a lot of the time the deepest lying midfielder. Obviously yesterday ended up moving further forward when Beaton came on after Turnbull's injury, but he does seem to be anywhere he needs to be. He will come away back and in between the centre backs, take the ball, or he will be at the edge of the box, or he will be right wing, or he will be left wing if that's where he needs to be to keep the play going. You saw that at Ross County. He was all right. He played the ball to Rogic before he put it in, which is technically a second assist if you're going stats. But it was more the fact that even before that, he was kind of keeping the urgency up, but keeping the game plan going as well. And that's the kind of role that you want from your captain, especially under Ange Postecoglou. And I think it's no surprise that he's getting the plaudits again this year. You
talk about leadership off it with Ange, but there was tremendous leadership shown by Cal Mac on it yesterday. No time for Celtic to wallow after going a goal down, and he picks out a killer pass, and your man Kyogo does the rest. But that's just known how football works. Being a brilliant operator, you pick out that pass because your team needs something. You need you, or might look to you to step up to the plate, and to produce a pass like that for me is just that moment alone. I think helped Celtic win the cup, because when when the score goes to 1 each, less than about 60 seconds after Hibs have scored, you wouldn't have bet against Celtic not winning that cup.
No, I think you could feel the first half Hibs offered nothing, but they did come out with a wee bit of impetus in the second half, and then to get that goal, despite the fact that it's been a great run for Celtic, it could have rattled them. It could have rattled that confidence a wee bit.
Yeah.
But as you say, they never even had time because McGregor right away picking the ball. I think it was Taylor to McGregor through to Kyogo, and then it was you did not doubt it after that. Even though Hibs did have a chance later on, Joe Hart came up trumps. You didn't really doubt it, and I think you could feel it in the stands as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. I just think he was terrific. So I got a few people saying that he maybe was off it yesterday, but hey, it's all about opinions, and we'll take a few here. Cal Mac, yep, coming on again. Cal Mac's on a par with Paul McStay, if not better. That controversial for you, Sean?
Wee bit controversial, I think so.
Well, if the bear comes in and says there's only one McGregor nowhere near Paul McStay's level. Well, there you go, Tim and on comes back in. Yes, he is. Watch McStay and McGregor is at that level. Oh,
get the two of them on, let them debate it.
And then Jim App comes in. Agree. Once it got to 1-1 so quickly, there was only going to be one winner. Yeah. Telling on, no chance, seen them myself. Different class. McGregor nowhere near it. Well, there you go. That's a debate that can rage on and on and on.
Listen, I don't think it's a massive. This is like the
exactly.
This is that again. I don't think it's a massive criticism to say you're not as good as Paul McStay because not many are.
We're having the Jimmy Johnston, Henrik Larsson debate again, on a kind of lesser scale, But there you go. But no, I think it's just I think it's a joy that we're actually having these discussions, to be fair, because nobody would have put money on Celtic having or Ange producing a cup winning team within 6 months. And I think it's just wonderful to wake up knowing that Celtic are cup winners again, and the rest of the season you have so much optimism, Sean, and hope moving forward.
I think there was anyway, because that the run they've been on since that Aberdeen game has been brilliant. That's the 10th game that's been decided in the 17 games with 15 wins in 17 games, 1 draw, 1 defeat. In that run, it's been 10 games decided by 1 goal margins, and Celtic have only not won once, so they've won 9 games by 1 goal margins, including yesterday. And I think that does say something, and the manner in which they won it yesterday also said something, because they weren't at their scintillating creative best. Let's not kid on. But they were still more than good enough and more than good value for that win.
But they found a way to win, Sean.
Exactly, and they've done it in the big stage, which is essential.
And that tells the players now that they can win. It also shows the manager that they can win, and I think that was more important to him as well. That these players now have that belief to win, and they can go on and do it again.
There's other players there that we can. The McStay McGregor debate still raging in the comments. I see. There's other players we can single out as well. Obviously, Kyogo, the 2 goals, you know that. We've talked about McGregor. Thought Carter Vickers had a great game again.
Yep.
I think the leap on him is unbelievable, because I know when people say he's not very tall, he's maybe 6 foot. He's not exactly small, but the leap, he was getting up and above everybody, and he has done all season, really. He's brilliant in there for supposedly a smaller centre-half, but I would never say 6 foot small. I thought Greg Taylor had a great game. I think that's arguably his best game in a Celtic top for me, actually. And I was really impressed that he'd done it in a League Cup final. Probably won't get as many plaudits because he never does, but I think he was really, really good. I think he was quietly vital to the way that certainly in the first half, the way that they controlled the game. I think you could maybe argue Mikey Johnston was one or the other, because he was very, very creative. He'd beaten a Paul McGinn all day, but it's the decision making at the end of it. Yep. I suppose that might be decisive as to whether you think it had a good game or not.
End product, Sean. I think most Celtic supporters would dispute with Mikey Johnston. I mean, there's definite talent there, but it's the end product. And if you're trying to be creative with no end product, that's what divides the opinion of the Celtic supporters of Mikey Johnston. But I don't particularly think I was quite generous to the players yesterday because they all played their part in a cup-winning team, you know. And others were talking about like Starfelt, saying he was terrible, and but he's in a cup-winning team. It might not have been his best game, granted, but he's played in a cup final winning team. So it's the sum of all the parts. They've all played a part, some more prominent than others.
I thought Starfelt, he'd done some really good things. I thought he won a good few tackles. He won a good few in the air as well. He did lose handling, seemed to be pretty easily for the goal, and he had a couple of wobbly moments, which he's prone to. I think we all know that now. But I can see I do see where you're coming from. That it's part of the machine that won the cup. I get that. As for his personal mark, I'd probably give him a 6, maybe. I don't think I'd have went as low as a 5 because ultimately I don't think he was that bad, but he did lose his man for the goal. That said, I can't really speak because I gave Liam Scales a 7 against Ross County, and he done the exact same thing.
I was feeling generous. I was maybe getting swept away in the tidal wave of emotion in the moment, So in the cold light of day, you might start picking, but I think that's nitpicking. I think the biggest thing yesterday for Celtic supporters was just to enjoy the moment yesterday. It felt like a long time coming, didn't it?
It did, aye. And I'm just going to say to remind we're going to go a wee bit longer today, so keep your comments coming in because it was a cup final, so it seems only fair. Because I see quite a lot coming in about Mikey Johnston, and it is pretty much concerned with what you said there, the end product. And I do think that not muddies, because I mean, if you've got end product, then it wouldn't be a problem at all. But it does tint the way that you view how he's played, because I do think he was doing a lot of good things. I do think he had the beating of Paul McGinn a lot.
I think
that sums it up. That's fair enough.
House of Fraser build up team up end product. Brilliant. I love that. That's terrific. I think most Celtic supporters wouldn't disagree with that, Rob. Very good.
I think with Johnston, I mean, I met a viewer of the show actually in my local a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about Mikey Johnston, and both of us were kind of the opinion that he would probably be one of the players that would benefit from a loan spell, like your Christie's, like your McGregor did, and different things. And actually, you would talk like Christie, Aberdeen, and McGregor at Notts County. I mean, they go away. They make their impact there, and they come back and they actually make an impact in the Celtic first team, because obviously there's plenty that have gone on loan and it has never really worked out when they've come back. But again, you can't risk putting somebody like that out on loan just now when the squad's so depleted. You just can't do it. So he's got to be given these games on the job, so to speak. He's not got the chance to work through these, because all the injury problems he's had, the lack of game time, that all comes into it for me. So I'm still willing to give him more time. I still think there's a player in there, but it would have been beneficial to have him out on loan and getting games every week and making his mistakes out with Parkhead and Hampden, basically. Sure.
Now, David Bradley, who's put a couple of comments in, he wants to talk about Abada's performance. We agreed that Abada didn't see as much as the ball as Mikey Johnston did yesterday. And again, another one whose end product can be iffy at times. But I think he certainly tries to be creative, doesn't he? Maybe just doesn't come off for him. So, and people saying he maybe needs a time or a spell on the sidelines, and he's not a definite starter now. It just depends where you are on Abada. He can do some good things as well, but
you need somebody fit. You need somebody fit to take his place to get him on the bench. Like, it's one of those things again. I think he actually, I mean, I pointed out to you during the game that we felt like we hadn't seen Abada much because the play was all over the left for the most part. But there was a couple of flashes, but I agree it was kind of isolated a lot, and he did make runs. Whether he was found or whether the play was over that side didn't matter. It was trying to get himself in good positions. I actually thought when he moved central, he looked a wee bit of a problem for Hibs as well on the counter and pressing and stuff. But I still do think that he's got a role to play. But if everybody's fit, he's probably not in the starting 11 for me.
Well, also as well, I think the reason Mikey Johnston was prominent because him and Taylor were linking up really well. So the ball going down the left-hand side, as you said, Taylor was very good. So he just kept shunting it out to Mikey Johnston. David Bradley comes in and says, "Don't know, Tony, I think he's hiding a bit." I think that's a bit unfair. I don't think any player goes hiding, but I think if he's not contributing, then there are spells in the game where he appears to be anonymous, doesn't he? That's the problem.
Aye, it's perception as much as anything else. I think sometimes I don't think he's hiding. I think that's harsh.
Yeah.
But sometimes there is the perception that he's I'll use the word isolated rather than hiding. But he does seem to go through spells like that. But the wingers tend to, really. They shouldn't necessarily in Ange's system, to be honest, because the part of the inverted fullbacks thing is to get the wingers one-on-one with their man, really. And I think that worked really well yesterday on the left flank. Because as we've said, Taylor's inverted role yesterday even led to him getting a couple of shots off, which is almost unheard of. But playing in Mikey Johnston, I do think he'd have beaten Paul McGinn, but it's as we said, it was the decision making at the end of it that let him down. So to me, that says that the inverted fullback stuff was working on the left flank, because it was isolating Johnston and he was getting the better of his man. It just it broke down after that rather than the system itself, if you know what I mean. And the right flank, they never seen as much of the play, so never had much of an opportunity to do it. But I can see the point that Abada, if everybody's fit, probably isn't in most people's starting 11.
Yep. Another player who just been a revelation since he came in, Joe Hart. You saw actually how much it meant to Joe Hart yesterday. He was quite vociferous in his celebration. He took a moment to sort of sit down at the final whistle and drink it all in and take it all in. But it's brilliant to see that from a player like Joe Hart, who's all sorts of international and English Premier League football experience, but he is loving it, and he was an important player for Celtic yesterday. Jabbed out a great leg to stop Kevin Nisbet scoring, and produced a save at the end as well. Just did his job. People being critical, saying he could have came for the corner, but as you pointed out to me, he very rarely comes for those type of.
He's not. It doesn't really come and claim. Really, it's not really something that you could argue he should just do it if the ball's there to be done. It was in the air a hell of a long time. I'm still looking more at the defenders. They know their keeper. They know he's not going to come for it most of the time. He'll shout if he's going to come for it. Starfelt gets brushed off pretty easily. I mean, the handling gets up well as well. You've got to give him credit for that. I think Juranovic on the line could he do better? It's maybe harsh because it all happened pretty fast.
Yeah,
maybe harsh that part of it, but no, Joe Hart. The one thing I've said about him all season is that, as well as making the saves, where keepers that Celtic were playing the last year or so weren't making the saves, when he does have maybe a moment of questionable decision making or a questionable moment of impatience, shall we say, with the ball at his feet, it doesn't let it undermine the rest of his performance, and that was on show yesterday. Even if he was thinking, "Oh, maybe I should have came for that cross," it didn't impact the fact that he came up trumps later on and made both the saves when he was asked.
Yeah, and with Cardiff Carroll on this one, Sean, I think we should talk about yesterday all morning. I believe we could, and all night. But now take some more comments about Joe Hart. There we go. Strachan's laptop. Joe Hart on his way to Celtic Superdome.
Well, there's only 34. You've got to remember.
He's still got a lot of years.
Aye, as long as he stays fit and firing, there's no reason why. And I think you said there that you could see him taking stock and taking a moment to it's probably appreciate how far he's come in the last couple of years, because he was in danger of falling. He had fallen by the wayside a wee bit down south and stuff, and the recovery. Even I've seen on Twitter, even some of the old the kind of Premier League writers that would have covered them down the south are even really chuffed for him to see him getting back to back to winning trophies and back to playing a key role. And I think you could see it. You could see it in his eyes. You could see it in his face, and you could see it in his words. You could hear it in his words when he was talking yesterday. But you could almost predict that, because he took a wage cut. He says what he was going to. He was here to play football. That was his first priority. He wanted to play in front of fans that would appreciate it, that would go for winning football and try and win trophies and get his career back on track, with the belief and the trust of a manager that had told him he wanted him. So I'm not surprised that that's the way that he reacted to it, because it's what he signed for.
David Kelly, Hart is very close to his prime now. He's a top quality keeper, and I agree with that. I think Celtic are lucky to have him, and Celtic have been good for Joe Hart, and Joe Hart has been very good for Celtic. I've said that before. Well, we're nearly at the half an hour mark, Sean. We could, as Cardiff Carol said, talk about it all day and all night and all the next day and the day after that. I think one thing is certain, everybody's just delighted that Celtic have won their first trophy of the season, the best Christmas present for every Celtic fan ahead of the events or the best time of the year, supposedly, or the most wonderful time of the year. It was certainly the most wonderful time of the year for Celtic fans. And Ange and the players at Hampden yesterday, we were privileged and honoured to be there in a working capacity, and we enjoyed it as well. I hope you all have a happy Monday. Can't get any better than this, really, surely. And whatever you're doing for the days ahead, have a great festive period. We'll be here for most days this week, except Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, I think, Sean, is that?
No, we'll be on Christmas Eve as well. Christmas Day we won't be.
Okay,
Aye,
cool.
so.
Well, we'll continue the countdown to Christmas Day and we'll discuss Celtic in more detail and the games coming up. But for now, go and watch the highlights and have a smile on your face. And if you're inclined, have a wee drink responsibly and just smile and let it warm the cockles of your heart, as they say. Thank you for your contribution, Sean. Thanks for everybody in the comments. As I say, we try and read out as many as we can. All the best. Have a brilliant day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Cheers, Tony. Cheers, guys.